the Open Meetings Act pursuant to his state of disaster authority. The change was effective March 16, 2020 until further notice or until the state of disaster declaration expires. In accordance with physical distancing guidelines and while providing as much transparency as possible, this meeting will not be open to the public. This meeting is being broadcast live at wccc.tv. The audio is also being recorded. The video and audio recordings will be available to the public. According to the Governor and Attorney General, statutes that may require face-to-face interaction between members of the public and public officials are suspended, provided, however, that the governmental body offers alternative methods of communication with their public officials. This includes public comment on agenda items. In an effort to allow for as much public input as possible, those who wish to submit their written comments on a listed agenda item were asked to submit their comments to the City Secretary's office by 11 a.m. today. The City Secretary will read into the record the comments submitted for items on the agenda at the appropriate time. Individuals who registered to speak on a public hearing item will be allowed to speak remotely for 3 minutes. We did receive registrations for comments on public hearings, and when the registered speaker is acknowledged, he or she must limit his or her comments to 3 minutes. For any person addressing the council through the use of a translator, the speaking time will be doubled to accommodate the translation services. Now, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, liberty, justice, for all. Wow, we're gonna have to work on that.
We're gonna have to get a beat, so I have to do it.
It's a pretty bad echo. It's hard to tell where everybody is. All right. Let's first item of business is to consider and approve the minutes of the August 18th, 2020 meeting. Are there any changes? Those will stand approved as printed. We have 4 public hearings tonight. The first is public hearing 2020-583.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This public hearing is to receive comments on a resolution to adopt and approve the City of Waco operating budget and CIP capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2020-2021. In accordance with Texas statutes and the City of Waco Charter, the FY21 budget was developed to address the Council's strategic goals. The budget features an addition of 13 new full-time employees, including 7 police officers for the Community Policing Initiative. The proposed tax rate is 0.776232 per $100 valuation, the same rate proposed in the last few years, and a rate below the no new revenue rate. A public hearing and vote on said public tax rate will take place on Tuesday, September the 8th, 2020 at 6 p.m. The public hearing will be open to the public at the Bosque Theater of the Waco Convention Center at 100 Washington Avenue, Waco, Texas, and City Council will be present via video conference. This budget seeks to build a high-performing city government that promotes a culture of equity that enhances the quality of life of our residents. Through the proposed new initiatives and staffing, this budget provides a foundation to improve city infrastructure and facilitate economic development during a pandemic. Through the budget development process, staff sought to find ways to support sustainability and resiliency in these tough times, all in an effort to make Waco a safe and vibrant city. After today's public hearing on the budget, Council will consider action to approve the operating budget and the capital improvement program for fiscal year 2020-2021, including fee schedules and a glossary of terms. Then Council will consider authorizing the city manager to expend these funds included in the remainder of the operating budget without further Council action. These items include employee salaries and benefits, temporary employee services, regulatory permit fees, utility services for city facilities and operations, approved refund contracts, bank fees, debt service, bond payments, investment fees, and collection fees, various services, upgrades, rental fees, lease and installment payments, and supplies for city computers, copiers, and telephones, city cell phones and wireless devices based on a DIR contracts, mowing services on privately owned lots and city-owned lots, operation and management of the Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness Center by Allen Samuel Sports, Incorporated. Legal services to be performed in connection with water permitting, watershed protection, and water supply matters. Services provided by McLennan County Appraisal District and McLennan County Tax Office. Existing service contracts with Cameron Park Zoological and Botanical Societies and the RATP Development USA, Inc. Authorized business grants, fees and taxes collected for the state, professional auditing / financial consulting services, and operation and management of the Rosemound Cemetery by Waco Rosemound Cemetery Association. When the budget requires raising more revenue from property taxes than in the previous year, Texas law requires a separate record vote to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the operating budget and the CIP plan. Since the budget does not raise more revenue from property taxes than last year, this separate vote is not required. Mayor, now the City Council will conduct a public hearing on the proposed City of Waco operating budget and the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2020 and 2021.
All right, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing. This is a public hearing to receive comments on the budget for the City of Waco for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this item? Esmeralda, I believe we have several registered speakers. I'll let you call them out for us.
Yes, so the first individual to register was Alan Northcutt, and he should be on the line now. Mr. Northcutt?
Yes, can y'all hear me?
We can.
All right. I commend the City Council for following the scientific experts in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. But the same expert peer-reviewed science is telling us we must respond to the climate crisis now, that we must slash greenhouse gas emissions 45% by 2030. Like COVID, we must act now to save lives later. If we don't join other cities which are taking action now and follow the U.S. Conference of Mayors' recommendation for 100% clean energy, we risk failing the deadlines and reaching tipping points where man loses all control of the climate system. And don't forget that we are feeling climate impacts in Waco. Rising temperatures with record 114 in 2018, record drought with crop losses, record flooding, and our current heat wave with multiple days of heat index over 110. This 110 line can be deadly even for normal, healthy people. And yet this budget fails to address the climate emergency. As mentioned, the introduction states a strategic goal is to, quote, support sustainability and resilience, close quote, resiliency. But sustainability is never mentioned again. Also never mentioned are the terms climate change, global warming, solar panel, electric car, or emissions. Ignoring this crisis will not make it go away. If the world follows Waco's inaction of this budget, the global temperature would increase 3°C or 4°C above pre-industrial, heating incompatible with civilization as we know it. Tourism that we love here would be gone. Thus, we oppose this proposed budget and call for the council to demonstrate that it will again follow the science and will fund specific action on the climate emergency now. If something is a priority, there is money set aside for it. I don't see that happening here. The challenge is huge and complex. Therefore, we do call on a Department of Sustainability to be set up. If the Ranger Museum has its own department, sustainability absolutely requires a department. It is the challenge of the 21st century. So we call for the city to provide funding for one or more specific items to make sustainability a priority. And I have in writing for you a number of possible actions that the city could take. I'll probably run out of time, but some of these are to require rooftop solar on all new city buildings, extremely doable. Consider electric car replacement for each retiring vehicle of any type, including yard maintenance equipment. Remember, and it's not in the budget that I can see, there is a TCEQ EV grant still available for electric cars until January 2021.
Dr. Northcutt, that is the end of your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, our next speaker who registered to speak actually just submitted his comments and asked they be read into the record, and that's from Mr. William Franklin. He says, even though do the right thing is the last of your 5 values, it should be first. And doing the right thing should include steps to mitigate climate change. I urge you to rethink and amend the proposal before adopting it. I'm also sick of giving investors millions of dollars to promote growth when growth is the road to the destruction of what was good about Waco. Growth will bring increases with everything bad: traffic, crime, poverty, paving over farmland, shortages of water, landfill space, sewage treatment capacity, the expense of police and fire services, shortage of educational facilities and staff, and the cost of street maintenance, and so on. I lived in Houston most of my life, during which time went from being about twice the current size of Waco to over 3 million people, and the horrendous problems that brought. When I retired, I escaped to a city large enough to have a university, technical and community college, and have a few big stores, one Walmart and one Home Depot, and lots of small stores run by real residents that could provide personal service. Much of that has already been eroded. Letting the speculators continue down the road would completely kill the intimacy that a small city can provide. I will happily contribute to the election campaign of any candidate that opposes the growth. The next comment that we received was from Peter Andre. I want more action addressing prevention of temperature rise and pollution through the use of solar, wind energy, and electric cars. If you set a good example, your citizens will follow. Waco is growing, and we need more to be done for the people that will stay healthy and happy. Next comment is from Carl Huffman. We need our leaders to take action on climate change. Being a leader is not easy, but please don't for the rest of us to stick our heads in the sand. Next comment is from Harrison Ward. I believe that the time has come for the city of Waco to vigorously address climate change in spending decisions. Next comment is from Anna Hubble. Looking at the 2021 city budget, I don't understand as to why we can't set aside financial allocations for the city to better the climate situations, when in fact the city gives millions of incentives to some businesses. I think we should do our part to battle the climate crisis. If you think that those businesses which you give incentives to are your investments, making steps to taking care of this planet is also a long-term investment for us and for our future generations. Mayor and Council, we have Wanika Muhammad on the line, and I'm going to give her the opportunity to speak by unmuting her. Ms. Muhammad?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, the council
Yes,
can
we
hear
can.
you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Deaver and members of the council. I would like to thank the City Council for the Small Business Recovery Fund efforts to help small businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is one of the first times that I witnessed that monies were actually put into the hands of locally owned businesses. However, historically, over the years, monies for for economic development, and minority businesses have been allocated to East Waco for these efforts over the years, but not much have been given to minority business organizations. So it is for these reasons that I am asking, as a minority business owner, taxpayer, and resident of East Waco, that the city of Waco continue to support the economic development work of the Syntex African American Chamber of Commerce by considering a contribution of any remaining and or future community development block grant monies, CDBG funds, for small business recovery into the Syntex African American Chamber of Commerce's Minority Business Equity Fund. As I said, historically, monies have not been given to our organizations. I hear that there are other programs other than minority business organizations that could possibly receive monies. And I feel like if minority businesses are supposed to get money from organizations, they should go to our organizations. So as I said, it was for these reasons that I'm asking the council to do this. I'm also grateful for the raise that you have given to them, because for so many years they have been given very little to do a whole lot with. And it's pretty impossible to do things and expand programs for the businesses of East Waco and the minority community without any money. Most of you all are businessmen and attorneys, and I'm sure you understand that plight. So I just wanted to say that to you this evening, and I hope that you consider my request. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Ms. Mohammed.
Yes.
Esmeralda, is there anyone else registered to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you for handling that. We'll now close the public hearing. I will now close this public hearing on the budget. I would entertain a motion to approve the 2020-2021 budget and capital improvement plan, including the fee schedules and glossary of terms. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Seguida,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes, that motion carries. I would entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to expend budgeted funds for employee salaries and benefits, temporary employment services, regulatory permit fees, utility services for city facilities and operations, approved refund contracts, bank fees, debt service, bond payments, investment fees, and collection fees, various services, upgrades, rental fees, lease and installment payments, and supplies for city computers, copiers and telephones, city cell phones and wireless devices based on DIR contracts, mowing services on privately owned lots and city-owned lots, operation and management of the Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness Center by Allen Samuel Sports, Inc., legal services to be performed in connection with water permitting, watershed protection, and water supply matters, services provided by McLennan County Appraisal District and McLennan County Tax Office, existing service contracts with Cameron Park Zoological and Botanical Society and RATP DEV USA, Inc., authorized business grants, fees, and taxes collected for the state, professional auditing, financial service, consulting services, and operation and management of Rosemount Cemetery by Waco Rosemount Cemetery Association. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Seguida,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-584. I believe this will be Millette Harrison, Director of Neighborhood Engagement, making a presentation. And I and Councilmember Kennard have filed affidavits of substantial interest on this item, so we will not be participating in discussion or voting on this item.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing to consider an ordinance approving and adopting a service and assessment plan for Waco Public Improvement District Number 1, including the annual budget and assessment roll for providing improvements and/or services for fiscal year 2020-2021, making provisions for the levying of assessments against the property in the district and owners thereof, fixing charges and liens against the property in the district and owners thereof, providing for the collection of such assessments, enacting other provisions related thereto, reserving unto the City Council the authority to reduce such assessments based on credits established by the City Council, directing that all required procedures be followed in accordance with Chapter 372 of the Local Government Code, providing for a savings clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance comes to you on first reading. On August 12th, 2020, the Advisory Board for PID 1 approved a recommendation to the City Council for the proposed service plan for fiscal year 2020-2021 for PID 1, which includes the proposed services, budget, and assessment plan for fiscal year 2021. The total proposed budget for the 2021 fiscal year for PID 1 is $1,822,001. with $767,738 being designated for programs, services, and administration, $300,000 being designated for operating reserve, and $754,263 designated for future capital improvements. As required by law, a copy of the service and assessment plan, including the budget and assessment roll, was filed with the City Secretary's office on August 14th, 2020, and also published on the city website under the Economic Development page. Notice of this public hearing was mailed to property owners in PID 1 on August 14th, 2020, and published in the Waco Tribune Herald on August 17th, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Millette. Are there any questions for staff? I will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading. Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Sabito,
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. I forgot. Motion waiting. Public hearing 2020-585, Millette.
Honorable Mayor and Council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance approving and adopting an updated service plan and assessment plan for the Waco Public Improvement District Number 2, including the annual budget, assessment plan, and assessment roll for fiscal year 2020-2021, making provisions for the levying of special assessments for improvement costs and annual administrative expense assessments on certain property in Public Improvement District Number 2 and the owners thereof, fixing charges and liens against the properties in Public Improvement District Number 2 and the owners thereof, providing for the collection of such assessments, enacting other provisions relating thereto, reserving unto the council the authority to reduce such assessments based on credits established by the City Council, directing that all required procedures be followed in accordance with Chapter 372 of the Local Government Code, providing a savings clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance comes to you on first reading. Waco's Public Improvement District Number 2, or PID 2, was first established in December of 2002 by Resolution 2002-733A on December 17th, 2002. PID 2 was established specifically for the purpose of paying for the annual bond payments through the annual assessment plan for drainage facilities that were constructed to provide for the commercial construction development that have already occurred on the properties in PID 2. The proposed assessment plan for fiscal year 2020-2021 for PID 2 is as follows. $181,490 for infrastructure improvement assessment, $5,000 for administrative expense assessment, for a total of $186,490. Assessments are divided on a per square foot basis among the properties in PID 2. As required by law, a copy of the updated service and assessment plan, including budget, assessment plan, and assessment roll, was filed with the City Secretary's office on August 14th, 2020, and also posted on the city website under the Economic Development page. Notice of this public hearing was also mailed to the property owners in PID 2 on August 14th, 2020, and was also published in the Waco Tribune Herald on August 14th, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Millette. Any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak on this one?
No, sir.
Okay, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Sabito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes, that motion carries. We'll go to public hearing 2020-586. I believe Rainesha Hadnell, the Interim Housing and Code Enforcement Director, will make this presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. This is a public hearing to receive comments on an amendment to the consolidated plan for the 2019-2023 to add additional goals and priority needs to provide funding for public infrastructure activities, affordable housing development, and economic development activities. The proposed amendment will allow spending for federal funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, CDBG, and home programs as follows. Increase the access to affordable housing through housing development, including new construction and/or acquisition and rehabilitation of housing for low and moderate income households. Development of undeveloped lots or parcels of land via infrastructure improvements, including but not limited to streets and drainage, in support of a new affordable housing development. Economic development activities to include small business education and funding to assist small businesses with loans for the creation and/or retention of jobs for low and moderate income persons. The amendment was placed out for public comment from July 28, 2020 through August 27, 2020. Notice was placed in the non-legal section of the Waco Tribune Herald newspaper and posted on the city's website and on the city's bulletin board. To date, we have received no comments.
Okay, thank you, Raynisha. Any questions for staff?
I do have.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I do have one question. To clarify, this includes the basically up to $10,000 grant for small businesses, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that sort of is in tandem with education, like small business education classes for that. Is that correct as well?
That's correct.
So I guess my only thing is I want to make sure we're not being redundant and that we're partnering with our chambers of commerce and Startup Waco and making sure we're not doing anything twice and creating any programs that exist there already to use this money toward.
So yes, we've had conversations with the local small business education program, WEBO, and we've talked with them to see how we can partner with them to provide wraparound services.
Perfect.
In conjunction with
Great.
our small business program.
Great. I just wanted to make sure we're not paying for anything that exists already. So as long as we're doing that and making sure that we're using the funds wisely, then I'm all for it.
Very good question, Councilmember Ewing. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right.
It's not a question. It's more a comment. I wanted to really commend housing and in determining that the need was there during the quick execution of the small business grant during COVID, and that identifying the problems that business owners had just in the process of even the application of the grant. And I mean, if I am a purple widget maker, my focus is purple widgets, and finding a way to educate and advance that widget making is something that if the city can provide, it's appreciative. And for our business owners, because it advances them and just strengthens us as a whole. So I appreciate you all identifying. Staff has done a tremendous job, and I can't wait to see more.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Bearfield. Further questions or discussion? Okay. All right. We will open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval. Second.
We have a couple of motions in a couple of seconds. Is there any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Beaver.
Yes, that motion carries. We'll now turn to the consent agenda. The consent agenda tonight consists of resolutions 2020-587 through 2020-601. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move approval of consent agenda. Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Beaver.
Yes, that motion carries. We have 6 ordinances tonight, all on second reading. The first is ordinance 2020-602.
An ordinance establishing administrative departments of the city of Waco, Texas, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith,
providing a savings clause, providing for an effective date, and finally determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on August 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Esposito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Deaver,
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-603.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code. Providing the zoning map shall be changed that certain property described as lots 1 and 2A, Block A, Harvey Edition, known as 200 through 202 Hillsborough Drive, shall be changed from M2 district classification and become and be designated to O3 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and terminating the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on August 18th, 2020.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move for approval
Motion.
on second reading.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Esposito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-604.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code. Providing the zoning map shall be changed that certain property described as Lot 4, Block 6, Lynn's Heights Edition, known as 2824 North 32nd Street, shall be changed from C3 district classification and become and be designated to R2 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and terminating the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on August 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on second reading.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Esposito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-606.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code. Providing the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as Lot 8, Block 28, Spade Street Summit Edition, known as 2529 Spade Avenue, shall be changed from C2 district classification and become and be designated to R2 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on August 18th, 2020.
And Mayor, that was ordinance 606.
Right, I said that. I said it was 2020-606. It's actually 605.
605.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion on ordinance 2020-605?
Motion for approval on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Esposito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Now ordinance 2020-606.
An ordinance abandoning a 20-foot, 0.166 acre alley located between Mary Avenue and Jackson Avenue and between 6th Street and 8th Street, described as being all that tract of land in the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, out of the T.J. Chambers Grant Survey, abstract number 7, being a portion of a 20-foot alley, Farm Lot 10, fractional Block C, as per plat recorded in Volume T, page 552 of the deed records in McLennan County, Texas, and authorizing the city manager to execute quitclaim deeds, providing a severability clause, and finding and terminating the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on August 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Esposito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Heber,
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-607.
An ordinance amending Chapter 28 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco, Texas by amending Appendix B subdivisions, Part 5, required improvements, Section 5.201, permanent improvements, to require that all lots located in Waco's extraterritorial jurisdiction and not immediately connected to a public sanitary sewer easement shall be a minimum of 1 acre in size when using an on-site sewer facility. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for penalties, and finding and determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed, open public is required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 4-2 council vote on first reading on August 18, 2020.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval on second reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just weigh in here on it. This is one that I had consternation about the first reading, and I thank staff for getting some updated information on peer cities. But it still seems to me that peer cities, I'm not drawing a good, solid conclusion on what peer cities are doing compared to what we're proposing here. And I still don't feel we have enough runway here on the effective date. But those are my concerns and why I'm going to be voting in opposition to this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
No.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Tito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Heber.
Yes, that motion carries. Are there any council member reports on committees or boards or commissions liaison visits? All right, I'll just invite the public to join our press conference tomorrow at 1:30, where we will be discussing our ongoing response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for joining us tonight. We will now adjourn the meeting at 6:41 p.m.